Hi, welcome to Loft 801. My name is Diego, and today I'm talking about Didn't Die, the 2025 Sundance Midnight premiere that's shot entirely in black and white and uses the zombie apocalypse as a backdrop for a quiet, kind of funny, kind of sad drama about hope, family, and trying to stay human when the world is basically over. I had a good time with this movie and I was satisfied with the runtime, but I'm totally aware that this movie is amateur in places with pacing issues and performances that are just fine. But there's a real charm to it, and I actually respect how committed it is to being something a lot of zombie movies are scared to be: boring on purpose. The apocalyptic world would be boring a lot of the time. The general premise is about a traveling podcast host, Venita, whose audience is slowly shrinking. She doesn't want to stop recording because then it would feel like an admission that the world has won. Setting-wise, it's been in the apocalypse for several years now. The biters are out and about, but they've kind of mellowed out over the last few years. They're not like World War Z or 28 Days Later zombies. They're a little more like the Walking Dead zombies, and they really only ever roam at night. These MFs are napping during the day. So while technically a horror film, this movie doesn't feel like that in the slightest. For the most part, there isn't a large sense of urgency with this movie. What really kicks the story off is when Venita goes to her hometown, runs into her ex-boyfriend, and when they're on a walk, they discover a crying baby in a house. That baby becomes the film's emotional center. It's not a cheap save the baby sort of thing, but rather a if we can protect one innocent thing, then maybe we're not as lost as we thought. From there, the story pulls everyone into one place. Venita, Vincent, her brother Rish, and their family circle all take refuge together. And this is where the movie becomes what it really is. People sitting around, sharing space, dealing with resentments, trying to make jokes, trying to feel normal. The zombies are there, but most of the tension is relational. In many ways, it reminded me of the COVID lockdowns. Everyone was largely at home, and that could get boring at times. Eventually, the movie pivots, hinting that the biters are changing and appearing more in daylight, eventually giving us a more traditional zombie climax. I think that's where the pacing issues kick in for me. The movie spent so much time building this moody, conversational, observational rhythm that when it finally snaps into zombie climax, it feels like a completely different movie. One of the things I liked about this movie is how it toyed with hope. It isn't preachy, it doesn't do big inspirational speeches. Hope is small and annoying and inconvenient, like protecting a baby when it would be easier not to. Hope is continuing to record podcast episodes when your audience has basically disappeared. A small amount of hope can go a long way. The cast and characters are where I'm a little more mixed about this movie. While they're likable, they're not always convincing. Kieran Diol is our anchor, and she sells the idea of someone who's emotionally performing fine. She can be calm, slightly detached, and hide anxiety behind humor. She's not particularly heroic, but she's likable and she uses humor as armor. George Bassel as Vincent works for me as the ex who rekindles romance. Samrat Chakrabarti as Harry is probably the standout for me. The rest of the supporting cast functions more as a community. Some characters are more cautious, some are more reckless, some freeze under pressure, and some step up. But overall, the acting isn't bad, it just isn't great. Sometimes line deliveries feel a little too we know we're in an indie. One of the problems this creates is that it makes it difficult to remember anything that stood out. Unfortunately, I think this can be worse than if the acting was straight up atrocious. Let me show you what I mean. If you have a movie with phenomenal acting, then that is what you are going to remember. The acting will allow you to suspend your disbelief and become more emotionally connected to the characters and their journeys. If you have a movie with bad acting, then that is what you're going to remember. It'll often break the fourth wall for you by being laughable, distracting, campy, and even memorable. If you have a movie with mediocre acting, you're going to have a hard time remembering it because so many movies have mediocre acting. As a result, mediocre acting can make you feel bored or disengaged. I said earlier that I admired this movie's commitment to be a boring apocalypse film. While I stand by that narratively, I also acknowledge that that doesn't make for the most entertaining movie. In fact, most people probably won't care for this movie. This feels like a very niche movie that a small audience would like. I could be wrong, so if this movie ever gets distribution rights, I would love to hear what other viewers think. Kind of adding to that standard mediocre vibe is the cinematography and production design. Obviously, this is a low-budget film. It accomplishes a lot with its small budget. This apocalypse isn't a giant set-piece spectacle. It's empty streets, fields, interiors, and a cozy home. Even in how things are captured, while everything is functional, it's not constantly memorable other than black and white. I want to say that all of this together was good because it was consistent, but I just can't remember any details about it. Granted, I saw this movie over a year ago, but I also took some pretty dense notes. I just didn't write anything down about the cinematography other than it was stark and moody. If I remember remember correctly, the soundtrack was a little eerie. In fact, I do remember correctly because I wrote that in my notes. It helped add to the tension and the idea that something is changing with the zombies. It's a low-key, persistent reminder that even when everyone's inside their home living life, the world outside is largely dead. I think where this movie's bigger sound identity shines is in the podcast itself. The mic presence, the voiceover rhythm, and Vanita's broadcast voice are great. They help serve the story in a distraction-as survival method. It's a clean metaphor and gets a thumbs up from me. Didn't Die landed for me, even though it was flawed, uneven, and often very quiet. I found myself respecting it more than I expected to. This isn't a zombie movie about surviving monsters. It's a movie about surviving grief, boredom, and emotional exhaustion, and about how people cling to routine, communication, and small acts of hope when everything else has fallen apart. The pacing issues, lack of urgency, and mostly mediocre performances keep it from ever fully breaking through, but there's a sincerity here that I can't dismiss. It feels personal, intentional, and oddly comforting in its own bleak way. This definitely won't be for everyone, but if you're open to low-key, character-driven apocalypse drama that's more interested in humanity than horror, Didn't Die might quietly stick with you, even if it doesn't always demand your attention. Thank you for listening to my review of Didn't Die. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and hit subscribe. If you did not enjoy the video, thank you for sticking around. I hope a zombie gets you. As always, I would love to read what you have to say, so leave a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Also, if there's something you want to see reviewed, don't forget to let me know and I will do my best to get to it. Lastly, if you want to see some more from me, then you can check out my vlogs linked up above or my podcast, Good Friends. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Diego and I will see you next time.